Hey everybody, I cannot get a wink of sleep right now, so I figured I would come on back and do a little replay review for you all. This is my most recent game of Storm League. For those of y'all who don't know me, I am a Tracer main for a long time in this game. Usually have about a 60 to like 66% win rate in Storm League with each season. You know, I am a dirty 5-stacker though right now, at least in this video. This is a full 5-stack, so you're going to see us take advantage of that a few times here throughout the game with a little bit of coordination that wouldn't be present in most Storm League games. You saw right there the taunt spam that is highly important to successful Tracer strategy. You got to flex on your teammates, you know, you got to let them know who's the boss, right? Anyway, we're going into lane here. I want to just point out the comps on each side as we go in for the tower. Notice Anubarak is fantastic, by the way, for cheesing towers because you don't have to tank them at all. All his beetles will just tank the towers for you. This makes you a lot less likely to get killed after because nobody's missing HP. Well, let's look at the comps here between these two teams, okay? Right side, the comp we drafted, it makes sense, you know? We're all looking for certain similar things, as this Zeratul player actually is about to fall asleep right there. I think he just didn't respect the Jaina burst damage, which hardly anybody does. She's a crazy hero. But if you look at the left side team, they have a really weird misdraft, you know, and I didn't go and cherry pick for something strange, right? This is just my most recent SL game. But you'll notice they have two healers. They have Ana and Uther, and they don't really have anything else that wants to play within that double support framework. Usually when you have double healer, you're specializing in winning the continual exchanging or trading of damage with the enemy team. You know, stuff like Vala, right? Like, Vala's a really squishy hero that does a bunch of damage, but she has to get kind of close. And if you are squishy and you have to get kind of close to the enemy team, you really appreciate double support enabling you to do a lot of damage to the enemy team. But if you have something like a Chromie, Chromie's not going to be able to, like, go in closer and do more damage as a result of having multiple healers. In the same way that a lot of aggressive melee heroes would, or aggressive short-range heroes like the Vala, or like a Hanzo who can put out crazy amounts of sustain damage. Whether you have one healer or two, in my mind, Chromie's going to be doing about the same amount. And then Zeratul, on the other hand, is one of the weakest early game heroes, just out of everybody, and he's definitely not good at damage exchange, even towards the later parts of the game. That's not exactly what he specializes in. Here you see I waited right there in the 1v1 for the Zeratul to put his singularity spike on me. That way I could just recall it and avoid all the damage. And you'll hear people talk a lot about, like, certain forms of point-and-click CC, you know, just hard countering Tracer, right? Like, oh, you know, Varian hard counters Tracer. That's the infamous one on my Twitch channel, because it's the common, like, noob advice that doesn't really translate, and in fact it completely reverses. If the Tracer player knows how to play, they can just farm a Varian player. And there's a lot of similar stuff at play, just as there is with the Tracer Varian matchup, as there is with the Uther matchup. Uther is this hero that, you know, oh yeah, he has this hard CD that shuts you down as Tracer. If you play Tracer like this is Overwatch, where you just dive in for no reason and just try to get up in their face and burst kill people, you're gonna die. Because for some reason, that's how a lot of people think Tracer should be played, and it's just not. You know, I tell people, think of Tracer in Overwatch, where, you know, it's a game where you actually can one-shot people, and the TTK, the time to kill, is super low. In Overwatch, Tracer's like Fizz from League of Legends. You know, she goes in there, she has the huge pulse bomb, she bursts people down and has a bunch of dodges. But in Heroes of the Storm, Tracer is actually a lot more like Tristana. I hope this is at least helpful for some of the League players in my chat here. I think of Tracer a lot more like Tristana in League of Legends, where you are this ranged character that can kite, but also needs to know when to dive in to finish people off. But if you're just walking in and diving right from the start of the fight, a lot of times that's just going to get you punished. You're going to waste all your cooldowns, all your HP, to not kill anybody, and then be really, really hampered after the fact. So a lot of this game is about me having the positioning to stay out of their CCs. And as long as I'm just sort of staying at the edge and continually dodging everything, this comp can't really do anything to me. They have no ranged point-and-click CC. And in fact, there's very little ranged point-and-click CC in this game. Like, Brightwing has one of the only examples, and it's just a slow and silence. The person can still move, and it doesn't necessarily set up a kill. Similar dynamic with Medivh's Polybomb as well. Because they have no ranged right-clicking, though, in the forms of damage, you know, stuff like a Raynor, a Zul'jin, even a Hanzo to an extent. Because they have nothing like that, as long as I'm dodging, I'm not taking damage. And as long as I'm dodging CC, I'm not getting killed. And in fact, pretty much every time except for one that I get wrecked in this game is because I just am playing really dumb and get hit by a sleep dart that I shouldn't be. Alright, let's see right here. We've been getting a lot of chip damage on these guys, but we finally start to back off. Ooh, I knew when I would go up here that the Ana would probably try to rotate through here, and I was actually incredibly surprised that this player had the wherewithal to see that gank coming. If they had walked into us, I think they die every single time. Do we still get it? No. And then, dude, oh my god, I was heartbroken when this Chromie got me right there. I think maybe if we reacted like instantly, Slick could have pushed off towards the Ana right here, off of the wall, use the Lucio D to push off towards her, dismount her immediately with his ranged auto attack, and then speed boost past her. Even with the passive speed boost, because you can see his E is on cooldown, he's using it right now. But dismount her, speed boost past her, boop her to the right. I think we get the kill. But he just wants to rotate up. I think we're a little bit on different pages right there. And at this point, I should probably just give it up. You know, I'm not respecting the Chromie at all, and if you watch here, I'm gonna change my perspective so I think we can see the Chromie circles now. I just walk right into it. Oh man, I was heartbroken when that happened. But I want to point out that in this game, whenever I try to play out of vision in ways that the enemy team can come around the corners and get me, that's when things tend to go wrong in this game. It's when I'm intentionally taking fights out in the open where I can see the entire enemy team, like in the middle of a lane, that gives me the most freedom to continually dodge. And whenever I'm trying to like dive in, that's when it gives me the most freedom to get absolutely pwned by coming around a corner in Uther or something. Here my Anubarak gets wrecked. I think that like Anubarak is really squishy and tends to be kind of like a burst character. You know, you're trying to set up teammates to go in for the burst kill. If you are using Anubarak as a big body to absorb a lot of damage, he's pretty much always gonna die. And I think right here, I don't really see what this is supposed to accomplish. It just kind of gets him killed because he's hard engaging on the 3v5 or 3v4 here. So a little bit too early on our engage, but we're fine. Let me switch this back. By the way, a lot of this has been from my actual camera perspective. Like right now, what you are seeing is where I had my camera in the game. If you want to do that in game, you double tap the number corresponding to that player. And for me, that's 6. There, I probably would have chased the Uther, but notice, I don't know where his team is, and I'm not trying to get wrecked like I just did a moment ago. So I don't chase him, and unfortunately it means my teammates get wrecked because that temporal loop is doing absolute work. This face check, I don't even know what possessed me to try that, bro. I just lost a bunch of HP for a move that was all risk, no reward. I get a little bit of lifesteal off mid here. And a lot of playing Tracer in teamfights is actually understanding when you're low enough that you can't join the teamfight until you get a little bit of lifesteal. So you pop over to a side lane, you maybe tap a little bit. Sometimes you just go over, you lifesteal just off the globe minion, and you get the regen globe plus a little bit of lifesteal. That's usually enough to get you back in the fight. It's about doing that as efficiently as possible, just maximizing your uptime and hitting the enemy team. See right there, I got the regen globe. That was the most important thing before I left. And I want to point out very specifically right here, I have my eyeballs on the Hogger and on how far back the enemy team is. If this Hogger gets himself in trouble, there's nothing they can do. So watch his spin, okay? He spins down, it bounces up, it goes here. As soon as I see the angle that this is coming off of, I know this guy is screwed. Because he cannot reach from way over here to a wall. I don't even think he has the right angle. Yeah, like he's going in between them anyway. So I am just sprinting at this Hogger player, because even if they get this objective, it's not that great in the early game, and they wouldn't be able to do a ton with it with one person dead. So I actually miss up my pulse bomb. You know, I had pulse rounds with the extra cast on the range. I thought that I'd be able to get him there, but even without it, this is still a piece of cake to finish him off, because a Hogger with no spin and no hortiple, you know, you just farm him. But unfortunately, their offlaner hard dived us, our offlaner hard dived them. It kept the enemy team distracted, but it meant that there was a 1-for-1. Honestly, I'll take the Samuro Hogger 1-for-1. I think we're still pretty advantaged coming out of it. Their Sleep Dart. I am looking at Sleep Dart the entire game, okay? Because realistically, as I mentioned before, the only two ways they consistently set up kills on me are if they hard CC me. So if they hit me with a Hammer of Justice by this Uther, which is easy enough to avoid, right? Just stay away from Uther, just stay at the edge of your max range. Or if they hit a Sleep Dart on me. So really the most important thing in every team fight for me in this game is just thinking to myself, okay, watch out for Sleep Dart, watch out for Sleep Dart. And whenever I see it used, I know that I have a, you know, like however many 8-10 seconds of freedom. 14 even, wow. Assuming she didn't take any talents that reduce its CD, which she did, so 12 seconds CD. Alright, Sleep Dart is down right there. I just need to stay out of the Uther's range. We get on this Zeratul who didn't do anything, and this is why I'm not a huge fan of Ring of Frost. Generally, unless you have like really good AoE setup for it as Jaina, because the only way you can set up your own Ring of Frost, yeah, see, look, the Uther is just hopeless, right? People think like, oh, Uther's so good into Tracer, but no, he's just hopeless in this matchup a lot of times because he gets kited to Kingdom Come. But a lot of times I only like Ring of Frost on Jaina if you're getting some kind of AoE setup from your team, maybe like a Thrall is earthquaking and slowing everybody down, or a Zeratul is void prisoning, or like a Maiev is clumping everybody up or something. But if you don't have setup, it's just really awkward and a lot less consistent than just getting a water elemental, which can't miss. You know, it's just got a bunch of point-and-click application of Jaina's Chill. Here we know we have the advantage, so the Anubarak forces the Cocoon. I like it, you know, it gives us the freedom to hard engage on the enemy team, but they just want to go on the Zeratul. To me, that's a mistake, and we should have gone down here. I don't know if we just didn't have cooldowns or what that was, but a Might of the Nerazim Zeratul is guaranteed to have 2 teleports to get away. And especially if you have an ability that can go over walls, and you do, you're almost impossible to chase. So, not 100% sure. I actually want to go back and watch that to see why we went in on the Cocoon target here. No, Anubarak has E. I feel like we should just cast this on the Ana every single time and we get the kill. Whatever. A little bit of a misplay, but that's okay. Yeah, and here, honestly, looking at the situation now, I see a play that I didn't at the time, which is that I could have blinked behind this Chromie while she was outside of her sidewall and body blocked her right here. And she would have probably taken enough damage before walking under keep that I could have finished her off with the fort dive into recall, but I didn't see the play till just now. Zoning for my teammates, capturing the objective here. And this Chromie, this is actually a theme you're going to see a lot in this game, is that this Chromie uses Temporal Loop on me, I think 3 different times. And what she doesn't realize is that Tracer pressing recall gets rid of the entire Temporal Loop debuff. You don't even have to time it right? You know, like you don't even need to time your recall necessarily so that you're in stasis when it would have teleported you. You can press this a frame after getting the Temporal Loop applied on you, and you won't have the Temporal Loop coming out. And that's exactly what I take advantage of right there. The thing is, though, when you're in this matchup versus Tracer Chromie and you're trying to recall the Temporal Loop, it's very important that you either recall relatively early, like right after she Temporal Loops you, or relatively late, right before the Temporal Loop goes off. Because there's this kind of awkward situation where if you recall kind of in the middle, you end up just recalling yourself into the exact spot and time that you would have gotten Temporal Looped anyway, and you still kind of set up her combo. And again here, notice I'm not just like chilling in the middle of nowhere, because like anytime you're missing a bunch of HP or you don't have bomb charge, a lot of times you can just be sitting in that side lane, building up that requisite bomb charge, just getting ready to help your teammates out in the fight. And notice how I stay on the margins of the team fight most of the time. I'm not really looking to get in there. I want to be on the edges. I saw this Hortapult from the Hogger go in, and I see the Uther going in. So now my whole goal is to make the enemy team play this split fight where they're not really able to follow up. But the divers right here back off, so I can't really enforce that stratification between the enemy two. They get the objective. That was an accidental B-step. I remember I was clicking attack move forward and I accidentally clicked the little Hearthstone icon by my abilities.
Your foes have proven their loyalty. Now my terrors will feed on you.
And the thing about Uther is that this is much more relevant in single healer than in double healer. Oh, hold on, actually here. So, you know, I've been talking about, oh, as long as I keep my distance, Sleep Dart is really the only thing that can kill me. And here you see me just, even though I'm keeping my distance, I'm not paying attention. I get hit by the Sleep Dart. Luckily, we have the lowest CD cleanse in the game in Lucio High 5, and so it doesn't really end up doing anything to me anyway. But I just want to point out, guys, one of the most important concepts, in my opinion, to playing one of these really shifty heroes that has a lot of ability to just dodge on command, is a very big trait of, in particular, just off the top of my head, Tracer, Vala, and Zeratul, where you have these, Li Ming, even, where you have these really low cooldown teleports, is that you need to learn to recognize when an ability is going off by the wind-up animation. Like, if you're reacting a lot of times to the actual animation itself, like to the projectile itself, you're giving yourself so much less time to react than if you were reacting to what the character looks like as they're about to throw the ability. And Ana has an extremely distinctive animation that if I had been watching out for in this moment, I would be able to dodge. And there's actually going to be a few times later in this game where I do dodge it because I'm looking at the animation. But I just want to laser in on this Ana right here and see if you can notice when she's about to do Sleep Dart just off the animation here. You see that? There is this huge, like, it's not super long, but if you're looking out for that and you're looking for the Ana sort of stancing up a little bit and kind of bending her arm, that gives you an extra, what, quarter second to react before you even see the Sleep Dart projectile spawning in at all. Because look at this. I get hit by the Sleep Dart, we get wrecked, super low CD, and that's again another thing, right? If you're not catching me in the wombo, if you're not getting me with my healer also inside the Divine Storm CC chain, it's just not gonna work. You know, this guy's over here blowing a wombo ability, the multi-AoE stun on just one person. You gotta be damn sure you're gonna hit it. And then right here, in this situation where you have two people that are killable with your team, and one of them is Uther, you should always go for the Uther second. You want to kill the Uther second because when he dies, he turns into a ghost that heals his teammates. And in fact, Uther's ghost is a much better healer than living Uther. So you're actively doing your team a disservice by focusing him. And I try to voice that with my team right here. I'm calling for us to go on the Chromie. I don't know if we have... Yeah, it looks like we have Burrow Charge right there. But yeah, we just end up finishing off the Uther first. I actually low-key think if the Jaina had held abilities, even though the Uther was the only person in range and not killed him, just been a little bit more patient, I think we could have gotten the double kill here, but it's all good. Alright, let's get out. Ooh, I actually make a gigantic mistake right here. I remember this from when it happened. Did you spot it right here, looking into this? So, there's a minion wave approaching right here, and I have my Jaina next to me, who is a wave clear hero. The objective is just about to finish. You know, this has a sliver of HP, and it's the only Garden Terror left alive right now. And for some reason, I guess I want bomb charge. I guess I'm thinking that all the camps are going to be despawned longer than they are. I start clearing this side lane. And you can see Jaina's going to one-shot the wave anyway, so me clearing doesn't do anything to help it go faster. But what it does do is show the enemy team, hey, red side has both of their damage dealers in bottom lane, and they come up and they steal our bruisers. As Tracer, this is just a horrendous misplay for me. I need to be off the map threatening the enemy team. Like, oh, am I taking my camps? Am I ganking you? Am I stealing your camps? There has to be some uncertainty. And when you take the mystery away, you know, when you unmask Boba Fett, if you will, then as a roamer, you become a lot less scary. And this is actually something that I picked up watching Blitz, the Dota Storm Spirit player. He would talk a lot about that philosophy. There's a lot of carryover between the MOBAs, honestly, that you learn going from one to the other. Alright, we finish off these giants right here. Notice I typically spread my damage a little bit. I actually didn't do it right there to ricochet the camp as efficiently as possible. And again, right here, there's a general principle that I tend to believe in when I'm attacking people, which is that you don't necessarily need to react to them using their abilities because they're going to. Like a lot of it is predictive. And low-rank players will hear me say that, like, oh, you're just dodging things based on prediction instead of, like, reaction. That's not consistent. You're just guessing. And I kind of hear what they're saying, but after you play enough of this game and run into enough of these matchups, you can easily force the enemy player into a situation where they kind of have to press their button, right? Yana right here does not have a lot of leeway to just let me sit here and wail on her before she presses her button. She's going to have to use that sleep dart pretty damn early. And that's exactly what I anticipate as I blink around her. Which isn't to mean that you should just sort of gamble, right? And be like, oh, they're going to press their abilities. No, it means that, you should recognize the situations in which people are extremely likely to use their abilities. And it's best for me to approach this where I can't get wall-banged by the Hogger. You know, any hard CC is a threat onto me, but that hasn't really been relevant all game. And right here, as soon as I see this Chromie isolated away from the rest of her team, I'm like, oh, I gotta get on that, right? The Uther's bot lane, the rest of her team is under mid fort. This should just be a free kill. Unfortunately, we're all kind of on different targets here. There's a little bit of a hectic situation. And while we've got the Ana in the cocoon and the Chromie in this, inside her little timeout, I start hitting the tower. I actually think this is probably a misplay. You know, I'm like, oh, you know, I'm thinking to myself, we're going to get ready to kill this Chromie right here when she gets out, or maybe we're going to dive this guy, you know, and in order for us to be comfortable diving, we don't want to take this tower damage. But realistically, I probably should have just hit the Zeratul or Hogger, and I would have gotten a lot more done while we were waiting. And if I had like 2 blinks and a melee, this Chromie dies every time, but with just 1 blink and no melee, it's actually pretty risky. And I think with the Uther not being there, I should have gone for it, honestly, but I tend to be a little bit more conservative on these kinds of plays. So a lot of times, you know, I'll be watching back my own replay and I'm like, I could have gone for that kill, I could have gone for that. But I think in general, they're just, you don't really need to take like those like really edge case plays a lot of times. Like I think they just make you die as an aggregate, you know, even if some of them you're missing kills that you could have gotten. Versus if you play more conservatively and just get the chip damage and scale into your incredible late game. Because Tracer has one of the weakest base kits in the game, but also some of the best talents and some of the best scaling in the entire game. As again, right there, you saw Uther try to combo me, but if it's only me, it's not going to work. We have Lucio, right? And Slick is playing a fantastic Lucio game here. And just understanding that as long as he's not getting Divine Storm, Divine Storm doesn't do anything this game. But you'll notice here, let's look at the stats, okay? I have 48k damage, and their top damage is 31k. I'm blowing this guy out of the water. But it's not really leading to kills, right? Like, I'm only up 8 kills to 5. I'm not really up any XP. In fact, for a lot of this game, I was down XP. And this is actually the story in a lot of Tracer games, is for like the first 6 levels, you're not really able to do much to anybody. You know, like, you can get some ganks or whatever, but your ability to just, like, exchange damage in the 4-man is not fantastic. I was winning in it because the enemy comp just is a terrible draft. But what happens in these games is like, you're like, oh, I'm always hitting his Tracer and nothing is happening. I can't get any kills. You turn 16 and then all of a sudden a whole light switch just flips. Your entire build comes online because for some reason a talent that increases your damage output by 60% is totally balanced, by the way. Just stay on the Zeratul right here. I try to dive in, but he's just got so much damn mobility and I can't get out. The Hogger here was definitely predicting that the Uther would stun me and try to hortapult me off of it. And I think, honestly, maybe they could have done it, right? Maybe the Uther stuns and the Hogger gets him, but a little bit of uncoordination from the enemy team here. My teammate is Temporal looped. I know they're not really looking at me. And again, I'm staying on the margins of the fight. Here, hold on. I don't want my Discord notifications getting all up in here. Just 1 second. Alrighty. And so you end up with a lot of these situations, at least I have been, where they get super low and then they use their mobility to go away. And I'm kind of okay with that. Oh, that was a huge self-heal by the Hogger. I'm okay with zoning them out. With how fast I can do it post 16, you know? Like, it only takes a little bit of auto attack and to really just burn their team down. Zeratil's not able to do anything to me. He tried to dive onto me with the Vorpal Blade right there, but Slick recognized the situation and that I needed the healing way more than the cleanse. I wasn't really in any danger of getting CC'd, so it was a really excellent burst heal high five right there from Slick. I think I got a little bit too scared on that recall, and then honestly, if I blinked left, I could have gone after the Zeratil, but again, just I'm a pretty conservative player as far as this goes. I generally believe that, you know, like I do miss a few burst kills, but I believe that by sticking to the playstyle and the philosophy of winning the continual sustained damage, it's just so much less risk. Like, that's going to go in your favor the vast majority of the time, unless you specifically just get wrecked in the early game because this hero's trash early game. And here, of course, is the fabled temporal loop for no reason. And again, you see, earlier I did the recall very early in the temporal loop. This time I did the recall very late in the temporal loop so that the Chromie combos nothing. And honestly, this is probably the right play. When you can get away with it is using the recall late in the temporal loop, because then the Chromie just wastes a full round of her abilities. If you can get away with it, right? Because it does give the enemy team more time to set up. We move down right here. I'm trying to tank these NPCs so that my Anubarak can capture. Unfortunately, I did not get close enough to the NPC on the left right here, so it is able to interrupt the Anubarak. And I know every time, see, this is what I'm talking about, right? People are going to use their abilities. I don't need to wait to react to see if the Zeratul that's standing right next to me is going to press buttons. I know he is. I still get hit by it, but the prediction was very close. And again, now a lot of Tracer is about like choosing when you can take advantage of your lifesteal and pop off to like a side lane or anything, and camps are also a great way to do that. That's how I got a bunch of lifesteal right there. Again, bad Tracers get farmed here every single time because they blink in trying to finish off this low person, and then they get farmed by the Uther Divide Storm. Let's take a look at it right here. This is the moment I'm talking about. Zeratul is hard CC'd, and maybe a melee can kill him, but also playing the sustained damage battle just will win. I must point out that we do not have our Samuro, of course. This is part of the advantages of having that 5-stack that I mentioned. Samuro is making the call, hey, I'm split pushing, and we're all saying, okay, let's stall and not die. Unfortunately, my friend Omega there is very fond of dying, and I can't particularly blame him. Now we finish off the Uther there. But you see, the enemy team is trying to play a playstyle that their comp just does not work well in. Who can dive on this enemy team right here? You know, like, I see people, this actually really segues really beautifully, I think, into how to play tank in this game. You know, I see people, they'll play like a Zeratul, or they'll play like a Muradin or a Anubarak. Not that Zeratul's a tank, he's not. But they think, oh, Muradin, I played games where I dove the enemy backline and we killed them all as Muradin, so that's the right way to play Muradin. Or, oh, I've played games of Anubarak where we dove the enemy backline and we killed them all, and that's the right way to play Anubarak. When really it's about matching it to what your team is good at. And if your team does not have the ability to run in there with you, I'm talking about the Genjis, the Greymaids, the Tracers of the world. If your team doesn't have that ability to run in there with you and follow up, well, what are you doing diving, right? And that's exactly what we have here. You have a Chromie who wants to sit 9 million miles away just taking pot shots at the fight, and an Ana who kind of wants to do the same thing. So even if the other 3 heroes, the other 3 in melee could potentially dive, it's just not really there. Enemy team gets way caught up in over pushing, and we're just able to farm them. And this is the downfall of so many teams that play against Tracer. And I'm talking about all the way from bronze to peak HGC, BlizzCon, mid-season brawl. Best players in the world would routinely lose to this aspect of Tracer, which is that going onto the Tracer's side of the map in the late game is incredibly risky. Right? Like, say you're looking for the invade, say you're looking for the objective, say you're just looking to push a keep down. The fact is that once you're done, you know, once you say, okay, that was a fun push, that was a fun attempt to invade, you now have to leave and you have to make it back to your base. And Tracer's not going to let you mount. Tracer's not going to let you recall. She's not going to let you get out of vision to sneak away. She has Tracer rounds, which bounces into bushes to keep vision of your whole team. So it's not like you can bait her into chasing you into a bush. She has a blink every 4 seconds after 13. And so teams will make these super, super deep plays that look good in the moment, not thinking about the next 30 seconds or so that come after, where it's like, oh God, why did we do this? We can't make it back to base. She's harassing us the whole time. There were teams in HGC talking about like Gen G, like the best heroes of the Storm teams ever, that would routinely win games exploiting this fact, where it's like, oh, we have a level 20 Tracer and you won the late game objective? Wow, it sucks to be you guys, I guess, because now you have to push onto our side of the map. It just makes the game so hard to play. Here our Samurai player pulls off the ballsiest invade I think I've seen in a long time. He had that had to be like a half second of clearance on that. I want to see this here. Okay, no, it's like 1 second, but still that's pretty crazy. All right, here I know the enemy team. You know, I just saw them all by the enemy siege camp. I know I can come in right here, and I want to flank because they have no point-and-click threat for me. I see the Uther over there, and I see the Sleep Dart. The Uther is their only CC threat onto me, at melee, really, because I'm never going to get wall-banged, right? I'm not just going to stand near walls in front of a Hogger. And the Sleep Dart is their only other major threat, so now I just know I can kind of go ham. But I see this nano boost, and I see how far my teammates are away. Like, if we were in the middle of a fight, I would have exploited that more, but now I'm just like, oh, cool, I'm wasting their cooldowns. The Zeratil's not able to do anything, and also, like, this is something that I see just a lot of people mess up in general when they're handing out buffs or they're using ults or whatever, is you should be sure that the fight is actually happening. If your idea is like, oh, I'm gonna nano boost my teammate and then he's gonna go in and kill them, then as the healer player, especially in solo queue, you're gonna end up just really pissed off at your teammates because you're like, oh my god, nobody uses nano boost. And the way you get around that is you don't nano boost and then want them to fight. You nano boost the guy that's already fighting. This guarantees that you don't have these issues where you misjudge when a fight is about to happen. You don't need to judge anything at all if you just do it when the fight is happening. And you see the Zeratil here feels really pressured to try and make something happen. And he's on us, and at that point when he queued both of us, I was like, hey Slick, we can't stand on top of each other. You know, we're triggering his Void Slash. He's gonna kill us. And he's like, got it. And so as soon as we start to spread out, I tell Slick right here specifically, keep me at the edge of your heal range as Lucio, because then his Q's not big enough to get both of us. And that's exactly what we start trying to do there. I actually miss a bunch of healing right there now that I look at it. And again, playing on the margins here. And this is what you do versus every frontliner that just doesn't have any mobility whatsoever. Is you just stay at max attack range, and this is why I pick tracer rounds so much, because that extra 0.5 range that you get from tracer rounds means that it's a million times easier to hit this Uther without accidentally just stepping a little bit too far into his Hammer of Justice range. And it also means that when you chip damage a tank, if you don't have tracer rounds, they can just walk into a bush and they now control that bush because you don't have a way to get vision inside it once they're in it and you're no longer hitting them. But that entire dynamic is reversed when you go tracer rounds, because there'll be a tank outside of a bush, you hit him one time, and if he steps in the bush to try to cancel it, you just keep hitting him. And you don't have to step into the bush, you just keep harassing him. So it's a complete reversal on enemy tanks' abilities to pressure you and to control vision. You know, I say a lot of times that like my HOTS playstyle as a ranged assassin is about making the enemy tank miserable, and that's exactly what you should be thinking about when you're playing Tracer, when you're playing against these main tanks, is just, I'm never gonna step into this guy's range, and I'm never gonna let him stand in a bush out of vision. I'm gonna use that Tracer rounds to prevent that from happening. In addition to that, also Ricochet right here, where are you? Ricochet right here, where your attacks bounce off of what you're hitting. This bounces into places that you do not have vision. This will bounce into the fog of war, and this will bounce into bushes. And also, these bouncing auto attacks apply the Tracer rounds vision debuff. So even once you get Ricochet, you don't even need to hit the guy before he gets into the bush. You need to hit a person next to the bush. It bounces in, and now you have vision on the entire enemy team because they're all getting 3-second vision debuffs on them. Just makes the game a million times easier to play. You know, I understand, especially in the tournament environment, why a lot of Tracer players tend to prefer the other level ones. They give you a much more aggressive early game. Even Parting Gift, you know, I'm the biggest Parting Gift hater in the world, but I can't deny that it gives you more early game pressure than Tracer rounds does, and more ability to burst people with your team, as does 1-2 Punch. But the late game scaling of Tracer rounds, the ability to interfere with the enemy tank's vision, the ability to just kite melee heroes forever, it makes Tracer rounds the pick for me the vast majority of the time. Not every time, but the vast majority of the time. And again, this guy's hortipulting, but he's doing it when I don't have any CC on me. And that's bad for the same reason that it was bad to try to combo the Zeratul coming out of the cocoon over here. He's just gonna dodge it, right? Meanwhile, The enemy team is really, really desperate because, again, this is this is why I love pairing Tracer with split pushers, because you will consistently be able to put the enemy team into a situation like this one, where the enemy team wants to do something, right? They either want to engage on us or they want to defend their base. But our team is so mobile, you know, Tracer can always get away, Lucio can always get away, Anubra can always get away. Our team is so mobile that they're not able to engage on us, but we're also so mobile that they're not able to hearth nor even mount up to go defend their base. So they end up in just this horrible catch-22 where no matter what the enemy team does, they're not able to succeed. It's why I really like the Tracer Samuro pairing, but you could just as easily pull off a dynamic like this with like Tracer Dahaka, Tracer Illidan, hell, even probably Tracer Asmodan. You know, like you distract them while the Asmodan destroys their buildings with Demonic Invasion. Just any kind of split map pressure. You know, in general, Tracer is a hero that just makes it hard for the enemy team to rotate around the map. She's excellent at ganking you between the side lanes, but she's also excellent at just this sort of meta. Where does the enemy team want to shift their chess pieces, and how can I interfere with that? And right there again, I knew the Zeratul was coming straight at me. And so I don't need to react to hit him with this pulse bomb. I want to specifically laser in on this right here. I'm very, very low. All of my teammates are full HP. This isn't much of a wild, you know, tea leaf reading prediction to think that he's gonna want to kill me, right? And especially right here, he blinks in on me. There is no reason for this guy to blink somewhere else. He's already on top of all three of us. He's not going to use his Might of the Nerazim blink on anything else, and he doesn't have a Vorpal blade blink. So this pulse bomb's basically guaranteed, and that's why I throw it right here. And again, the Hogger desperately hortipults in because they're trying to get that invade, but they can't back off and they can't engage on us, and the Samuro just gets a free top keep as a result. As Chromie does not learn her lesson, man. And again, they're slick, always understanding. A lot of times as the healer, if you are a cleanse healer or like somebody that can just save their teammate from death, the most important thing is just that you're not the person getting comboed, right? Like if you're Lucio against Diablo and he's able to consistently wallbang you to start fights, you're gonna get farmed. And that's why some people are like, oh, Diablo hard counters Lucio, because they just wall ride right in front of the Diablo and they get themselves engaged on. But a proper Lucio player might hang back a little bit more and say, it doesn't really matter if my teammates get stunned by Diablo, so long as it's just not me, I will always be able to save that person. And Slick is really embodying that understanding of how to play a cleanse healer in this game, where it's just, as long as I'm not hugging Mockery, and you know, we're not right on top of each other holding hands, as long as that's not happening, he's always going to be able to swoop in and sweep me off my feet with that high five, you know? I do a reload right there, moving it on the enemy team. I'm trying to chase them down right here, specifically to force a really awkward separation between them and the cocoon, which we do indeed achieve right there. I just don't want them to be able to save their guy coming out of the cocoon. And again, right there, I think this is actually the moment that I referred to where I do, in fact, actually look at the wind-up animation, and you can see the wind-up animation of Ana's sleep dart, and you can see the dodge coming out right here. Just pay attention to her. Watch, she's going to start doing that sleep dart animation. Whoop, just go right through it. And here is the beauty of tracer rounds that I was just talking about before. If I don't have tracer rounds, if I'm parting gift or 1-2 punch, these guys, maybe they start setting up a desperate play where they try to like stun combo the first person that face checks this bush. The Uther does indeed have stun available. Maybe they can catch like Slick or me off guard, but that's not even a remote possibility when they have tracer rounds. They just have to keep trying to run because the bush offers zero respite whatsoever, and they run right into my Samuro's open and welcoming arms. Here, when we have 3 people dead, and I think a lot of like solo queue SL teams would never make this call to win this game, but as long as you have a full open lane to clear the core is not invulnerable. So we just get this sidewall right here. And I'm trying to call for my team like, guys, this is why we cleared sidewall. Let's go and end mid. Although I think my teammates are actually making this call, not me. We get the dive on the Chromie right there, and who needs these other lanes? Just go ahead and finish off the game. Gotta stack our KDA, right? I believe we actually go for like one more kill on the Zeratul. You gotta stack your KDA. Guys, is it just me? Like, whenever the game is ending and I'm defending, my team is losing, and I walk out and they all get off of the like 3% HP core to kill me, I'm like, oh, of course they would get off the core and kill me. Okay, guys. But then whenever the roles are reversed and I'm killing the enemy core and somebody walks out, I'm always like, drop everything. I want every gun we have to fire on that man, you know? So I can't really hate, you know, because I absolutely do that. Trying to save my man Omega. We do get the kill. Yeah, of course. You got to pad your KDA, right? Anyway. Solid game right there. Enemy draft honestly just didn't make any sense if you ask me. They're trying to play different game plans. Chromie wants to poke. Double Healer wants to go in and exchange damage. That's not what Zeratul wants to really do. It doesn't really make a lot of sense in the enemy team in particular. And of course, like I said, I was able to benefit from the 5-stack, but I think there's a lot of good stuff to learn from here in this game. And I hope that this was helpful for you guys. I hope you're all having a good day, and I will see you when I see you.